Well, it's 8:30. I'll call the meeting to order. Verify proper posting of the agenda.
Yes.
Approval of the previous minutes. Do we have a copy of? Any questions, comments? A motion to approve. And a second.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign of disapproval.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask that we do are you in the motion? Okay, sorry.
I'll move to deviate.
Public comment.
Trying to help.
Motion to deviate from a posted agenda if necessary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to deviate if necessary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposing. Motion carried.
Can we do the 6 and 9 together or do 7 and 8? 7 and 8 is kind of in the middle of the whole kit. Can we do, you want to do those things first and then we'll do 6 and 9? You want to do 7 and 8 first?
Do 7 and 8 first.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, we'll do number 7 first then. Review and possibly approve resolution for additional funding for Crawford Center dehumidification.
Concrete salt. Concrete salt. Yeah, we're gonna have to put up with it.
In light of our discussions at County Board last month, I question if this may be premature since we may not have a lease with the Hockey League, and the only reason for this dehumidifier is for the Hockey League. And the Hockey League had made a comment that they had money to borrow to the county, the $14,875, or at least the representative, that if we needed the money, they could borrow it to us. I think since this is an item that is only specific to the Hockey League, perhaps we should be working out a payment plan for them to pay for their dehumidifier. So maybe this is premature at this point. Maybe public property needs to talk about the lease and talk about their ability to pay for some of the modifications that are only in respect to that person leasing that building for 6 months out of the year.
Mr. Chairman, I think, Bob, I think you're right, but the fact of it is when we had the guy got up, or the gentleman that got up in front of the county board, he said he was already promised that the county would do this. Is that right, Steve, you're here?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been playing this game long enough to know that Steve Dreyer can't promise anything. And their request when we were negotiating the extension to their existing contract, which was fully approved by the Public Property Committee by unanimous vote, they wanted to include capital projects as part of their lease. And it was pointed out to them that those cannot be incorporated into a lease because we can't speak for the County Board of Supervisors when we're negotiating a lease and what may or may not take place when it comes to capital expenditures. That's why none of those items are in their lease package. Now, you know, his reference to being promised, the project was originally approved in 2010 for a 2011 project. We put the project on hold when we were going through the thing with Johnson Controls and all of that. Then by the time that all fell apart, we were too late to get the work done during the 2011 hockey season. In 2012, we've commenced with both of the projects that were previously approved KIPs. The bids were opened and came in, obviously lacking sufficient funding to do both projects. They were never promised anything. I guess they do, on their own, supply funding for other capital improvements. They've just replaced their chiller tower with a much more modern unit than the outside gravity feed one that they had. It's something that we could enter into discussions with them for refunding some of these capital expenditures. The dehumidification system, I'll agree with Mr. Krause that it is primarily for the hockey league because that's when we have the humidity problems in there. That's what started the deterioration of the structural members that required repainting so that they wouldn't continue to deteriorate. It's certainly something that could be discussed with them. I don't know that the gentleman who was at the county board, he is not the president. I don't know that he spoke for the Shawano Hockey League per se when he offered the proposal to float a loan. Typically the county and capital projects won't enter into a loan agreement, and that's why this is before you today to fund the balance of the project.
I got a call from a gentleman named Greg, and he said his last name about 3 times. We had a fairly bad connection. I couldn't get it. He called me before the county board meeting, and he basically said the same thing that Mr. Dillenberg said at the meeting. And I had asked him why. I told him we had a little bit of a concern of doing the dehumidifier because they only had a 1-year lease, and we'd hate to put it in and then they go away. He said they got nowhere else to go, but one of their major concerns is the cost of electricity after that dehumidifier is in. That's what they want to wait and see. They want the dehumidifier to go in, then they want to see what it's going to cost them. So, but he said the same thing John did, that they were promised things and not getting it. He had talked about loaning the county money, and I told him, I wasn't going to talk about any of that. Just I was concerned about them having the 1-year lease, spending this kind of money, and then maybe they go away. But they were more concerned about the electricity. What's that going to cost them once that's in?
Randy, do you know, since you're chairman of the public property, and it was interesting, the fact is that nobody knew about the lease that was signed in April, and we didn't have a signed copy. Do you know had that went through public property?
I recall. But how did that end up anyways? What did Tony say with that? It was never signed, the lease?
It
Yes, it was.
never signed by Rosemary.
I've got
It was
signed
by
copies. Jerry's back here nodding his head. He has signed it. Rosemary signed it. It was completely approved by the Public Property Committee. The Public Property Committee has not historically taken each and every lease of the Crawford Center to the full county board.
So that one did go to the county board?
No, sir.
But it was approved by the previous Public Property Committee, because it wasn't approved
Correct.
by the current Public Property.
Correct. It was approved the month before the change in
Okay.
hierarchy.
Okay,
So do we have a valid contract now,
Yes.
sounds that way.
even though it wasn't approved by the county board?
Well, they don't all get approved by Congress.
Well,
It's got to be approved by the county board.
none of our leases of the Crawford Center come to the county board.
Oh, really?
Never have. Every time we have the circus, every time we have shooting sports, every time we have all of the, the touch a truck, all of those issues, that is handled by the Public Property Committee. None of those leases have gone to the county board.
Well, I had called for the comment from Roseberry for the county board rules since they were changed, and have not got back to the county supervisors, but it did specify the fact is there was some changes, but there was things that stayed current, like the theater, Milky Theater, the grounds, Keith handles the grounds in the pavilion, and public property handles the maintenance and any development, new development or remodeling
Of the theater, correct.
And that stayed the same.
Correct.
What do we want to do with this resolution? The painting is done, right, Steve? Or-
Yes, looks very nice.
So what was your suggestion to ask them to cover the extra 14?
Well, the actual cost of the dehumidifier is what?
I included the painting too.
The actual low bid for the dehumidification was $94,875. We're short by $14,875 after awarding the low bid of $65,000 to corporate for the painting project.
So it sounds like we have a valid lease for the other year, so my original thought was that we didn't have a lease, but as it turns out we must have, so that's fine. But it is a $94,000 capital improvement that is specific to the hockey league. So I was surprised. I don't know what the new lease says. The original lease, from my understanding, did come to county board. I remember discussing it. I also remember months later finding out that their actual lease didn't cover all of the maintenance costs. I'm assuming the new lease does, but it doesn't?
No, sir.
The gentleman told us that they were paying all utilities. Is that true?
No, sir.
Well, then I think we should table this until such time that the Public Property Committee can reevaluate, since this is new information that was brought forward to me anyway as a member of the Public Property Committee. This is information that I hadn't received in forwarding this to the CIP Committee for a standalone CIP. So I guess I would like to see it go back to committee. There's no rush in doing this, that the dehumidifier can be put in anytime during the season. It doesn't have to be like the painting. The kind of rush was on to get the painting done because you can't do it while they're using the hockey rink. But now that's done, and the dehumidifier can be put in while they're using the hockey rink. It can be put in next month, the month after that. I think I would like to see this go back to public property, get some questions answered about, because this committee, Public Property Committee, did not approve that lease, and see what's being covered and what's not being covered. I was in the last lease agreement, and from talking with people that I know that participate in the hockey group, and the hockey group's a great group. I mean, they work very hard and diligent to supply the community and the young people in this community a venue to practice hockey and play hockey. So it's a great group, don't get me wrong. But their comments were that they were living on a shoestring budget and couldn't make ends meet. And now I'm hearing in one meeting at our county board meeting that they were going to pay all utilities. Now today I'm hearing they're not. And the thing that really bothers me is they have money to borrow to the county. And if they have money to borrow from the county, I think they should at least be self-supporting and pay their own utilities. And if that lease can't be changed, then fine. But then maybe this dehumidifier may be something that they can help support.
Mr. Chairman?
Steven, do you want to weigh in first here?
Well, I just wanted to provide some clarification. The lease extension that was approved by public property with the hockey league, it does call for their monthly rent to go to $6,000, and does provide for a balloon payment from them should that $6,000 rental fee not cover all of the utility expenses for their lease term.
Okay.
So I guess I misspoke by saying that they weren't, covering their utilities, where the new one, nobody knows what the impact is going to be. They say that they're worried about the electrical. The dehumidifier will use very little electricity. What is going to increase primarily is natural gas. And that's the reason that they wanted to do a one-year extension so that they could measure the impact on utilities.
And so their thoughts are, if after that year the costs are too high, they're going to abandon it?
No, sir, I don't know what their, what their thoughts are. We had previously entered into agreements for multiple years, and the first one did in fact come to the county board. And since then, there's been a couple of renewals. This latest group that is now in the management position, wanted to not extend themselves by making a commitment longer than 1 year to covering the utilities, with that being an unknown at the time, with the new dehumidification that was supposedly going to go in. But I agree with you that the dehumidifier can be put in at any time.
And Steve, having said that, I've been told by someone, I don't recall, somebody called me, and they want a multiple year lease, I was told, not a 1 year lease. And so I don't know where.
So again, my motion to table back to committee.
Marlon and
I had a question first. Just a comment that I would like to see when, apparently the new Public Property Committee should revisit this and take a look at it, because we have a new committee that doesn't really understand what happened there. So I would think that it's appropriate, and I did make a second to his motion. So I guess we're discussing the motion at this point. But I would like to see at least that if the Public Property Committee would pass on a copy of the lease that they work out to the rest of the county board members, because this has been something that the first time around when the original lease was signed, we were very involved, and it did go through county board, and then gradually it got, so you kind of delegate things back to the committee structure, and you assume that they can just hand them on. But I think we've got enough new things going on here that maybe at least they should, I'm not saying that the county board should have to approve the lease, but at least they should have the courtesy of being given a copy of it so we know what's going on. But I do have a second to Bob's motion there.
Mike?
I'm looking at the August 17th minutes, and one of the bullet items there was a motion by Geezy, seconded by Young, to take $14,875 from the sales tax fund to complete the Crawford Center project. It was all A's, motion carried. A resolution will be needed for the September County Board meeting. I thought this issue's done.
This is not done until it goes to county board and the county board acts on it. We could leave it today and I'll bring my motion on county board floor then.
Well, I'm just questioning, isn't all of this resolution was just...
New information has come since I agreed to that motion a month ago. I've received new information not only at county board floor, but today. So I would like to see it go back to the home committee. I'm just tabling sending this to county board so that the home committee can discuss it. It can still go back to county board next month. I mean, that's fine. But
I'm just bringing that up. I thought that was taken care of already.
Robert's Rules of Order.
I think it's appropriate. I'm no attorney, but I agree with Robert that there's a new information. It changes what's going on with the resolution, and I think it should be brought back to the committee, especially since it's a new committee.
yeah.
So
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think maybe,
Call further questions?
maybe before we go ahead with this, we should have a multiple year lease before we make this investment.
Yes.
Public property will talk about that.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been told that's what they want.
He has as much as admitted that they really got nowhere else to go.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to send this resolution, send it back to Public Property Committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposing. Motion carried. Update, airport Murray Creek study.
I did contact a few people. I talked to Grant, and he said that there was something in 2008 when they were talking about the expanse of the runway, but Murray Creek, which wraps around that runway, I understand, it wraps around the airport, is also a spawning creek for Northern Pike. So I had to call the DNR. And I talked to Alan Niebuhr, and he didn't think anything has been done with that since. So it's sort of in limbo right now. He asked me to call somebody in the Green Bay office, a Jim Dombrowski. I called him, but there was no answer, so I left him a message. So basically, what I have found out, I don't think anything's been done. So I think whatever expansion the airport has to do, we still have to get something through DNR in regard to what they plan to do with Murray Creek. It's a spawning creek, therefore it's very sensitive.
Mr. Chairman, in light of talking about the airport, I think if Mr. Kosterman said the other night, in order to get the money from the state for that card reader even, this county, the city has passed this a long time ago, and I think we're sitting on it, holding it back so they can apply for the money for the card reader, and I think we're holding this back, and I think we've got to move forward on this thing. Because they can't go ahead and do we get the approval from the county board. And so I think we should really look at this thing.
We will be discussing that later.
The finance committee, this was on their agenda a couple months ago, and they tabled it. And I don't know, Marlon's on the
It was
finance
on the
committee, he
finance
wants
committee
to
again
add.
yesterday, a discussion, and there were a lot of questions on it. And among other things where we'd never been told yet how many gallons of fuel they're actually disposing of. In other words, they're pumping fuel, and that was the one question that if we have a $45,000 or $35,000 piece of equipment that we have to buy, no matter who pays for it, whether it's still coming out of taxpayer dollars, whether it's coming from the feds or local. So we have a $35,000 piece of equipment, and there might be more money involved yet because of upgrades to the other equipment, the tanks and the like that's there. But if we have this type of an investment and we're running just a few hundred gallons because we were told they buy only 300 gallons of fuel at a time. And that was the one question, is that, are we doing a kind of an overkill here? The other question was, of what advantage is it to us as a county? We have, the fuel is purchased by Clarence, and that's part of his pocket. Out of his pocket, and that's, he's only paid $25,000 or whatever it is a year. So he buys fuel and he sells a little extra fuel on the side. But again, does that justify? Should we do it just because there's a bunch of federal money out there? Is it really a necessity at this point, or is it just kind of a wishful thinking? So I think the finance committee had hadn't come to the conclusion that it was a necessity.
Well, I think the reason for that is that they didn't have the airport budget meeting yesterday.
They're scheduled, and they will have their opportunity, and I'm sure we'll revisit it when they come back, because the budget isn't done yet.
And I mean, the city has passed this last year, and the county is sitting on this thing, and there's no reason for it. Because there's such a little amount of money that's going to come out of the county and the city that's divided up. It's ridiculous that we're sitting on this thing. The planes that come in here and get fuel come in and spend money. They spend money in our motels, they spend money in our bars and our restaurants and everything. And the airport has asked for this a long time. And I think we're just dogging it, and we shouldn't dog it. We really got to look into this thing, and for gosh sakes, give them a break.
And Gene, the jets that come in here don't fuel here. There's a difference in fuel.
I didn't say the jets weren't, but it's the other.
At the last meeting, you had mentioned that. And no, that's two different fuels, and they do not fuel when they come in.
But this is something that planes could come up in the middle of the night and fuel up and go out at night. Because this is a card reader. We go back to the card.
I wonder how many planes land here.
I guess, that was the whole part of the argument, Gene, was that nobody from the airport commission ever really came forward with a detail of, a description of how many planes land there, how much fuel do they get, when do they land? Do they land in the middle? You know, nobody ever really came with a record to justify putting, you know, it's only from the county, $4,500, but that's quite a bit of money. You know, $4,500 is still quite a bit of money that there should be some justification for.
Okay, there is a log there that the pilots come in and sign. But if they come in the middle of the night, sometimes they sign the log and sometimes they don't sign the log. So, because John Ainsworth asked this question to the county board, how many planes land there per day or per month? We couldn't tell him because not everybody signs the log, you know, so you have to guess. And that's what you do when you have a small airport like this.
If they land in the middle of the night and don't sign the log, how do you know they were there? Or who cares if they were there? They obviously didn't buy any fuel because they didn't pay clearance.
They didn't buy any fuel. But they can land in the middle of the day, and if the price is out going on,
So back to the airport,
they don't sign.
I think
the
we're
law.
done with
the
that.
Murray Creek part. So you found out that nothing's been done, but did you find out what needs to be done?
No, they
Okay,
don't know.
are you still gonna look at that,
I'm
Tom?
still looking into it.
Find out exactly what needs to be done as far as that creek goes? If, I mean, I think Grant had mentioned that there was a 2-year study or something that had
There
to
was
be
a
done.
2-year study and there was a 2-year moratorium, but I don't know what the moratorium is for.
Okay.
I'm assuming don't mess with the creek until we know how much damage is going to be done to the creek, what impact it has on the spawning of northern
And you'll
pike.
find out who's gonna be doing that
I'm
study,
going
et
to
cetera,
get
et
hold of
cetera.
all these guys from
Okay.
DNR and find out. Yes, I will have a report.
But that project had nothing to do with our kit, correct?
I don't think
Either,
so.
either one of them would.
That has to do with the extension, the runway
Yeah.
The
extension.
rehabilitating the runway,
I think rehabilitating the runway, to me, would mean rehabilitating what's there.
What's there already, exactly.
There is another project out
I
there.
really want to expand the
it.
runway.
To add
so add the parallel taxiway in 2015.
Right.
That could be the one.
That's the one.
Okay, well then it looks like we've got a couple of years to worry on now.
Yes.
Let's maybe move on.
You know,
Absolutely.
I'm like, yeah,
Okay,
I'm
then if you go back to the start at 6. Go to 6.
We can go as soon as we started the meeting, the clock stopped.
Discussion and approval of funding,
I got it all.
2013, 2017.
Here we go.
Tight.
This is different than what we have in the packet?
Only that number 2 has a line through it.
Oh, okay.
What I've got,
We're not doing that.
what I did is I put a proposal together for funding. I started at the top and kind of made my way down. But that's all it is a proposal. I did share it with some of my coworkers and they did make some suggestions, kind of make some changes. There's stuff on the back too. And I think I went down to number 18, I think, on the list.
And we ran out of money.
Well, I get, there's some things that need to be talked about. What I did, if you guys remember the schedule that is always in the front of the book, and it lists all the projects by years and stuff like that. I'm going to hand this out. The ones that are bolded are the ones that are in the funding schedule. So you can use both of those as a working document to make changes as we discuss.
Just a history question of the capital improvement plans. Things that were on the capital improvement schedule here 3 years ago, are all those projects, do they get completed?
What happens is the capital improvements, the 5-year plan gets updated every year.
So then they could move off?
So they could be that they could move off, or sometimes, that move to a different year, or they could move completely off, because sometimes things change. We like to have everybody let us know what's out there for the next 5 years, but sometimes if things, for instance, we had some Maple Lane projects on there. Well, once we sold Maple Lane, those projects pretty much, they dropped off the schedule. So it could change. But what we do is that everything, like for next year's budget, everything that we have listed in KIP in 2013 on the capital improvements project will be projects that are approved to be done in 2013. Now you see some of those items aren't bolded. Those will have to be moved to a different year if the county's not going to fund those projects.
How do you figure that roof repair for the highways up, environmental project?
I guess, I don't.
No results to put it? Honestly, is that it? No results to
That
put
was
it?
part of it. Steve, you want to?
I believe that we've covered the salt storage sheds because the DNR requires that the salt be covered when in storage, because if it's not, the salt can leach off and damage the environment.
That's not this. This is fixing the roof over an office.
Oh, at the highway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that an environmental project is my question.
Keep the heat.
Because it's not the salt shed.
It's not the salt shed, it's just.
It might be a little bit of a stretch. Like I said, this is just a
It's a
preliminary.
major stretch.
That's fine. You guys have a final decision. It was just a preliminary thing I put together, and
The
It's
vehicle
gonna
for
change.
the parks is a minor stretch. Because it's
oh,
a
no.
vehicle and it's a
No.
park, so I can buy that one.
It's because it's not just environmental impact fees can be used for
I know.
the parks and recreation and environmental
Fish food.
issues. So
Yeah. But still, it's a vehicle.
but it's not there. It's not under there because it's a vehicle. It's there because it's part of parks operations.
Okay.
No, I'm looking at the 82,000.
I'm trying to
next year. Yeah, next year's one.
Question. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
No,
on here I don't see, where are we classifying the Milky Theater roof?
That's a project from a different year.
Yeah, that's a different funding source.
Plus,
Right.
yeah,
That's the
and
Milky money.
And that's been already covered in another kit.
So
And
the
another
money
kit
is
year.
there for
What
that?
year? 2012 or 2011? I can't remember.
11, I believe.
Somebody have their book here.
I believe it was
Randy, you
2011.
have your 2012 kit book here?
Yeah, that's.
You think it was what?
I bet you I took it out.
$3,125.
Yeah, why is that?
That light doesn't know.
Somebody have one.
It's not waiting for funding.
Mike, did you have a 2012 kit book? Oh, there's one right there.
Yeah. I have a question about the airport, that rehab runway. It's listed in here for $250. But on the request, it's, our portion is what, 31?
3,125?
Yeah, 3125.
Yeah, I've got it listed on what? But, okay, on that thing is the total cost of the project.
Oh, okay, so we
Okay,
don't,
if you look on here from the fund, with the funding thing, I have the 3125, and then to the side, I put
Oh, you
what
did
the
it.
total project cost is.
Yeah,
okay.
very good.
The Milky Theater expansion was a 2012 kit.
So that money is there,
We don't.
so they can go, public property approves that now, We've already talked to Randy, and we can get at that and get that done, and get turf off and everything.
I can't answer that question. You'd have to talk to public property and maintenance on that project, and
What Diane is talking about, that's a completely different project for Milky.
it says Milky Theater expansion, am I correct?
That does not include the road.
2012?
That
That
That doesn't
was
include the-
county funding towards the expansion project that went into the expansion funds of $200,000.
Which includes replacing the roof when the project's done.
Correct.
No. Now it does. I mean, that wasn't originally part of the expansion project, the roof.
Yes,
Sure
it
it
was.
was.
Replacement or a new roof?
It was a new roof on the expansion project. The whole building got a new roof in the expansion project.
Okay.
So we're gonna leave them sit there with a tarp on the roof again?
We're going to discuss it at the next public property.
It's probably-
It's on the agenda for the next
Agenda,
public property in June. The roof is, not the expansion project.
Yeah.
So Diane, now we would go through, we could make some changes or somebody wanted to make any changes
Yes,
as far as the priority goes.
yes.
Pretty good. If you take the
You want to go through each one separately on the green sheet or not?
No, you could just-
Well, everything moves up because the fairground lady was over there, so everything moves up one step.
Yes.
You haven't chosen any.
Diane?
Just was 30,000 that was transferred, that KIP transferred into there to use for that project, which is very well.
You said we were able to fund up to 18. Was that already taking out of the fairground project out of there? So are we at 19? Is the card reader in or out?
No, the card reader's not in there. The other thing I wanted to tell you too was, if you notice, when I went through it, I've got everything in here through number 18, which, I mean, except that I don't have the county fairgrounds lighting in there, obviously, because that's already been taken care of. But then the other thing I just noticed on there, we didn't use that much of the environmental impact fees. I went down the list till I could find a project that you could use the environmental impact fees. So number 23, the Milky Theater shelter with the bathroom, is listed on here, but you can see that it's in italics on your funding sheet, under environmental impact fees.
But that's included in the 372.
It's included in the 372, correct?
Oh, okay.
So does it move up then? That we're talking about, or moving
Well,
up?
at this point in time, we're talking about the funding and what projects you want to fund.
Okay.
I don't know that you really need to do anything with moving the projects around in the priority list, because we're kind of like.
Well, if a roof is accepted expenditure under that, then maybe we should look at some of these other projects rather than just the Milky Shelter that scored higher.
Great. I agree.
Yeah. This is only like a proposal to start the discussion,
Right.
so you guys don't have to start from scratch.
I wouldn't want to start from scratch. I think this is well thought out and worked out. It's just, some of these things we may need to move around a little bit.
Right.
How much was the resurfacing of the employee parking lot?
Should be on your yellow sheet. Oh, that's under the waterway, it's 265. Oh no, that's the replacement.
52,000.
Employee,
52,000.
52,500 for the employee parking lot.
Let me see. Oh, actually.
One of my concerns too was the amount of sales tax. Normally we kind of stick around the $210,000 level, but whether if we go over or under that amount, should be okay, because we've had a few years where we've been under that amount, and there are sufficient funds to be over the $210,000.
There is a limit though, isn't there? Sales
Well, we have
tax.
to maintain $500,000 in that sales tax fund. I mean, I don't think you're going to want to go up to $400,000 or $500,000 in 1 year.
Yeah, right. That's by county board.
That's by
Do
county
you think
board
the jail water heaters
resolution that it has to stay, you have to make
That's
it.
environmental, it'll be more efficient for jail water heaters.
What's that number now?
Says there,
1.5% sales tax.
better stretch than the roof, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I agree with you, but they're already high efficiency water.
I just stick that roof in there just so you
Oh,
guys
we're
can
not gonna
talk
claim it,
about.
claim it.
I'm confused about the sales tax. Where's the sales tax funds?
The sales tax,
Very top.
the first group
Oh,
of
it's the first
projects
group,
is the
okay.
sales tax.
Yeah,
The
got it.
second group is environmental impact. The next group is other ones, and I've got them listed to the right side where they are. And then the last page are the funded from debt.
Fish cleaning that came out of there too. That we used for Ocean.
Bob, if you'd like to
Yeah.
talk.
I'm sorry,
talk
speak
to
up.
all of us, please.
All right. I guess I was just thinking that, you know, the was brought up before about the shop roof repair and environmental impact fees may need to come out of there and something else go in there. And I was thinking the fish cleaning station is an environmental, it's a park improvement, would maybe make more sense than the impact fees. I'm not sure where we would move the west shop repair. I guess I'm just, and that's what I'm wondering where else we could use some Ho-Chunk funds. And I guess the other question I had, and that's why I was speaking privately to Rick about the jail water heaters, if that was an improvement in efficiency, if we could consider that an impact fee, since it was saving the environment by being more efficient. He thought that perhaps they weren't any more efficient. I don't know.
I think your efficiency's gonna be the same, because those are high efficiency.
The ones that are in there now.
They're just old. You would think if they were from 94 to now, the efficiency would improve.
Still gonna be around 92.
Okay.
Why wouldn't the jail water heaters be a maintenance item that's in their budget rather than as a capital improvement?
That's the argument. That's the argument we had last meeting. That's correct. You could do that, but it's kind of 6 in one hand, $5,000 in the other. If you want to do that, then you've got to fund those projects in the budgets.
I think we agreed at the last meeting that we were going to take that up as a change of rules, perhaps after we were done with this year's KIP, and then discuss why some of these maintenance projects are KIP projects. I think we were going to look at a rule change afterwards. We'll deal with that then, I guess.
I think it would really be good if we could put some guidelines together.
Sure.
And we talked about meeting in November after we're done and this is all fresh in our mind. Because it's probably time to take a real look at the whole kit process and stuff. And if we can get some better guidelines down, that would be good.
Especially since you're going to be losing the environmental impact fees in the near future.
Yes, yeah, we probably only have, depending upon how many we use, we probably have this year, and maybe, we won't have, if we use $500,000 this year, we won't have that much next year.
So Randy, in changing from one category to the other, what, the bottom line is going to stay the same, isn't it?
Not if, well, you're talking about moving projects?
Yes.
The bottom line would, but that 50, if that 55 goes up, that's another 30 up there, which still doesn't put us over the 500,000. But I don't know what whole chunk funding can be used for. They may feel better about spending it on a fish cleaning station for the park than they would for a roof repair. Although I agree the roof repair needs to be done. Grant made it sound like it was really extended. It needs to be
If we
done.
move the roof repair, we probably would have to move it up into sales tax. In discussing some of the stuff with staff, we did talk, now Tim just left, but we did talk about the one with the thing that's really putting the sales tax over the top is the $180,000 for that real estate, that software, that LIO software.
Well, the roof repair thing is just my opinion. I don't know if everyone else is comfortable with it there or not, or...
I see your point, man.
We have 3 different sources of money. and it really doesn't make a lot of difference when you get to the bottom of it, which person it came out of. It's a convenience, a bookkeeping exercise to decide which one you want it out of. But other than that, it really doesn't make in the long run a lot of
We
difference.
do have some
Wow.
compliance issues on some of these, like the environmental impact fees. And I think even like the whole chunk funds are looking more at like, more like project type things or new things rather than, you know, repairing the road. Because I mean, you do have to report what we spend it on.
When they gave us the instructions for that whole chunk money, Rick, they said, as I recall, we shouldn't be using it for things that would be detrimental to the tribe. We shouldn't be using it to lobby against them. But I don't think they said anything about that we couldn't use it for, in place of general funds for the general operation.
No, in our meetings, they would like to see it go towards something that symbolizes, say, like a Milky
Symbolizes
Theater or the arts or something like that. That they can,
Playground equipment.
Yeah.
Something that the public.
right.
Can use and see.
Yeah.
So, recommendation, anybody?
But they don't put anything up that this was funded by or anything, do they?
Well, we did,
Yeah.
out at the playground at Wilson Lake, we put up a sign saying thank you to the Ho Chunk Nation. And then we met with the guy that writes the newsletter for the Ho Chunk Nation. He's gonna put an article in their newspaper saying this is where the money went. This was last year, we got $30,000. Here's what it is, and we did have put a plaque up in that instance.
So would you do that maybe with the fish cleaning station as well?
We certainly could, and that, put a plaque upside around the building itself saying, these funds were provided by the Ho Chunk Nation.
Yeah, and we're continuing to negotiate with them on other parcels, and I think,
Fish cleaning is whole chunk. It's already
correct, but I
just want to make sure they're getting some kind of recognition.
Right.
I don't know if I'd
And they
be
should.
spending computers, spending it on computers or anything like that, but.
Obviously, I can't make a motion on this committee, but I would suggest moving the fish cleaning station. No, you want to keep it?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
It's there.
Keep it there and then put a sign in there.
But absolutely, sure.
Even with the staff computers in the library, put something up there.
Yeah.
So you think that the state will be okay with the environmental fees coming out for the West Shop roof repair? Think we'll get that passed?
If we had to go ask for a variance on it, that needs a variance. They allowed the fire signs, so I'm sure they're going to allow this.
Oh, they did, that's right.
Plus, what else? We had to ask for a variance for, the match on that AFG grant, right? That was like 86,000? Yeah. So we did get a variance, and we got a pretty quick turnaround on that one. And if
They're
this
not,
committee thinks we need-
they don't get hung up on their rules. It's very easy to spend ATC money. They'll tell you right out, it's your money.
Do you know why?
Huh?
Because the PSC makes the decision, but the PSC had nothing to do with starting this or anything. The whole thing was dumped on them to manage it.
They just want it gone.
They want to do it with what you want.
Right? Spend it, it's
I
gone.
didn't say that.
Mike has a question.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if we're concerned with this LIO tax collection for the 180,000 that breaks out our budget here, is there any reason why we couldn't put that in to be funded from debt?
We could, but we'd have to make sure it was real short term, because the software doesn't, we don't want to borrow over a longer life than something's going to last. So,
Well, you
I mean,
take
it
the
could
whole
be-
courthouse roof in one shot, and you do the communication system in one shot. You could very easily do a one shot on that.
yeah, it could be done.
Could I make a
What are you
motion to
looking about?
do
That's
that?
around $1 million.
Yeah, I would talk about that
He's
too.
starting on it.
Yeah, I don't care.
Could I make a motion then that we take the LIO budget item to place it into the funded from debt?
Then what would happen? Would something else go into the sales tax, or it would just be 180,000 less?
Well, she's
Well, you can-
concerned that we're getting too high of our
Well-
the number's too much in there right now.
I think you're okay with that particular number, but if you want to start moving stuff up in there, then I think you're going to be getting a little high on the sales tax amount.
So we could take some of that volume of the money out, put it into the debt fund, then we could then add, if we would know what that realistic 321 number should be, then we would know what we could put in there.
Well, why are we saying we have to put something in there? We
Well,
haven't
I'm not,
got to squeeze any money yet.
I'm just saying that we should take that 180 out and put it into the debt.
Well, now you're taking short-term, you're doing a short-term thing that normally, software, that may be 2, 3, 4 year maximum lifetime of that thing. And you're putting it into borrowing, because we're gonna borrow long-term money on it. It's an operating expense. Software, your software that you use on a computer and software and the upgrades, that should be short-term, it should come out of operating expense, not out of a debt thing.
Okay, I will pull my motion, Mr. Chairman. I understand.
Because we don't have a pinch here yet, If we had a pinch, then we'd worry about it.
Okay. I was just listening to what Diane said, where she was talking about 321 or
Yeah,
something.
well, if you need to move something out, move something else up there, then you'd be getting pretty tight.
So the 321's about average what we do, and the $1 million, is that about average what we borrow?
210 is what we really look at for sales tax, but we've been under that for the last couple of years.
So we have the extra 100.
Yeah, so I think you can go over that. I don't know that I would go much over that. So if you want to move something with that, you'd have to look at what else you have there.
The million in borrowing, is that about what we do on average?
It depends upon what you need. I mean, we've done more than that. We've done less than that.
So we have another 700,000 in projects that we're borrowing from previous year. How do we end up from $1 million to $1.7 million on the total?
The total is all of the projects. The total from all the different funding sources.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's okay.
I thought you were just told me that.
And I think, Randy, the last 3 years, we probably only used 200,000
On
of
sales tax?
sales tax
Yeah,
money,
well,
not much over.
I don't even think it was over. I think it was less, actually. I know last year. I'm pretty sure last year was less.
Chairman, when we get to, I hope somebody's keeping track of things that we can revise when we get to the end of the, through our deliberations here. We want to look at rules forward. But again, that sales and use tax thing, there could be some recommendations there. Because that was kind of when we came up with that automatic division that we're going to hold this amount of money in there, that was a kind of a knee-jerk reaction at the time for us when we were dealing with the possibility of building a new justice center. A lot of those things have changed now, and we should probably revisit that to see if the need for, why are we still holding that amount of money there? The rules for the sales and use tax was you were to use it to offset operating expenses that you normally had. And that's probably what we should be doing with it, instead of arbitrarily keeping some little artificial pot of money there for an excuse we don't know what we're going to ever do with it. It may be time to revisit and say, well, let's use that money for the purpose that it was originally intended.
I can comment. We are using it for what it was intended for, because these are projects that you would be, in the past, we always could levy, for it back in the day because there was the capacity there. Now there's not the capacity there. So, it is going to offset the tax levy.
Yeah, well, if there's not a capacity to levy anymore, that's one more reason to start using the sales and use tax.
Because otherwise you'd be borrowing, or I don't even know how to fund some of these smaller ones.
So if you hold it in a little fund away and you don't spend it, you haven't helped anything.
Well, the county's been funding it, and that actually came from you, Marlon, back in the day when you didn't want to borrow for the Justice Center. You thought we could save.
I'm recanting. I'm sobered up now.
As we said earlier,
I'm glad this is being taped.
as you said before you started, Marlon, this is something we're going to talk about after this project. So let's let that stew for a while.
So that if anybody's, I don't know if Nina's keeping track of these things that we're going to talk about later.
Well, yeah, she's got it on tape. You're sobering up. Let's go.
What kind of money do we have in sales tax? What's,
I think we had, our last time I looked, it was over $1 million in there.
I'm not worried about everything.
I think
I don't wanna borrow
you
money.
stated that, I think I got that, you stated it at the.
At the last
county
county board meeting, I think somebody
Yes,
asked me, and I had
board.
paper.
Thought it was 1,018,000 or something like that.
Going back to the Milky shelter with bathroom, are we most comfortable with that project being moved up from the ones, below 19 to 27?
Yeah, and the reason I took that one is because after 18, when I looked at what I had and all the other ones, there was capacity under environmental impact. I went down the list to see what would actually qualify for environmental impact.
And it said rough.
And the Milky Theater shelter, I'm sorry, what?
I'm just kidding.
I'm glad you remembered that, Randy.
You can do with that roof whatever you want, like I said, it's just,
The only one other than,
it
and
didn't, so you'd have something to talk about.
I'm good with the Milky Theater shelter bathroom if that's what everybody's good with. The only other one that I think is of fairly importance is the parking lot. But if we think that it's more important to chic up Milky a little bit more, I'm fine with it. I'm just asking the question.
I think, the plan had been, years ago, was to get all the shelters done. This is the last one, isn't it? Do you know?
In the parks, yeah.
Yeah.
Does the committee know
Leave it
that
there.
It'd be nice to get that one done before the environmental impact piece are gone.
we stick in thousands of dollars in the fairgrounds, we get nothing back for 4 days of fair or 5 days of fair, whatever it is. But every time Milky Theater has something, we get $1 back for every ticket they sell. So the county is getting something back. And yet we're sort of pushing them always aside.
So you're most comfortable with the shelter, the bathroom then? To add, if we're going to add one of the lower projects?
Yes, I think we should get the Milky Theater taken care of.
Well, this is the bathroom though.
This
Yeah,
is the
this is
shelter.
the bathroom.
Shelter.
Shelter.
And the
And this will be under Keith's.
And the building thing, the public property is working on that right now.
Right.
They're working on it. And Gene, it's not like it's been pushed to the side.
No, the Milky Theater paving and the shelter with the bathroom, that's Keith's, under Keith's. And the maintenance and for the theater, that's under public property.
Right.
Otherwise, I think this turned out pretty nice.
Thank you.
The,
Except for the
We haven't found a place to move it, so I think we're gonna leave it there.
so it sounds like.
So now should we really get into a fight and talk about borrowing?
If you think that I should ask for approval from the PSC, I can do that. That's not a problem. Nobody
We
can
never had a
follow
problem
someone.
getting an approval for anything we wanted so far, so why would we worry about it?
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead and do it.
What have we changed now in summary? I forgot, we've talked about moving things around, but have we
Never
actually
moved
moved
I don't
anything?
think we moved
Just
anything.
talk.
So Diane's sheet here looks pretty good.
I think
Except
so.
for borrowing.
When we have gone out and borrowed, the payment schedule for new borrowing has been set up so that it kind of evens out the payments over the years. So a lot of times new borrowing, the first couple of years of payments are lower, and then as debt drops off, then the payments on the end are higher. In 2013, we'll be making our last payment on the grandstand and work release center, so we have a big payment that'll be dropping off. So if you want to kind of keep that even, so you don't have spikes in tax levy for debt, the borrowing in 2013 payments normally wouldn't come due till the next year, 2014. The timing might be good for that, would probably be good for that. The other thing that's out there, and I don't even want to bring this up, but is the storage, so I don't know where that's going to fall. So,
Well, I think that anything that you can, without borrowing, because if you look at what way we're going right now with a 12.4% school tax, gas going up, food going up and everything, keep adding and borrowing, and it's gonna add to the levy. There's only so much people can handle. And if this county board don't understand that, then we're not doing our job.
I'm not sure.
If we can use it on the sales tax, that's something that's paid when you buy an item.
I'm not sure that the county should suffer because the school tax went up. You know what I mean?
It's the people, Randy, that have to pay the tax, the
But the
levy.
people had the opportunity to go to the school board and vote that down if they wanted, and they didn't.
And that
I don't
would
think
be
we
asked
should
of too.
decline doing projects and stuff based on the fact that they raised their. That's just my opinion, Gene.
And if we don't continue borrowing and moving forward, what's gonna happen in 5 years? You know, we gotta keep improving.
I know, but there's a wish list, and then there's what you
There's not
have
much
to
on
do.
here that's a wish list.
Yeah, roofs have to be fixed.
Well, the roof, and I'm
The roof
not,
has to be done.
I'm not questioning the roof, I'm questioning the communication system project.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, putting it off a year is not gonna end all. That's the only question I have. And do we wanna do the whole project, or do we break that project down? I mean, I have to go on what public safety said they wanted, and this is what they want. So, to me, it's a complete project, but the question is it absolutely necessary to borrow the money this year for that project, or do you wait another year and say, what do we have next year in sales tax to help offset this project, as opposed to borrowing all today? That's the question I have for debate. I'm not saying that I agree with holding it off. I'm just saying we should at least debate whether we borrow another $758,000, or do we put it off a year and hope we can get it out of some other source of funding.
There'll be more competition for funds. You know, there's just going to be more competition for funds after this year.
I just, yeah.
I guess I was going
Yeah.
to answer back on to Bob's situation as far as the borrowing. You know, just the idea that we're getting our debt paid down and we've got a bunch of things that are getting paid off, that all of a sudden, whoopee, we've got room, we can go out and borrow a lot of money. So let's do it. You know, that's like saying, hey, I have to use my credit card until it's maxed out. And then as I pay off, then all it does is it puts you in the same place you were. You can't spend any more money once your card is maxed out, because you can spend less, because now you're paying off on the credit, on the interest. And the same thing for the county borrowing. You don't get any more money by borrowing. Over the long run, you have the same amount of money to spend. It's just that some of the money that you're collecting in taxes now has to go to paying off debt. And so the idea is that I don't see a good advantage to having $1 million sitting in a fund that's a fictitious fund that we set up for some other reasons, that where we stick the sales tax money and it's sitting there, and we're not getting any interest worth a hoot on it now. So it's sitting there, and yet we're to go out and borrow money that we pay more for so that we can do something. The concept, I don't see any point in sticking that money in those pots and not spending it. So if the project is good and it's needed, then you should use that sales tax money instead of going out and borrowing for it.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
Randy?
Yeah, I guess I'm listening to all these different projects, Milky and the whole works, where we need this and we need that, and all of a sudden the communication system is being said that maybe we can wait for a while. Well, if you looked at the sheet that describes what our needs are on this, we have equipment that's getting obsolete that we no longer have any recourse in getting parts for anymore. We break down, that's going to mean you people out there that we may not be able to respond to as quick, you folks out there that are going to be putting deputies, firefighters in jeopardy, but take a roll of the dice and see whether the communication systems hold up for another year or not. But it's needed. It's not a wish list, it's needed.
Mr. Chairman?
And communications is such a big thing in all counties right now. Every county is expanding and improving, they have to.
And when we had the PowerPoint presentation, we were going through this year after year, we are still spending less on our communication systems than what other counties are doing around.
Substantially. Mike?
This CIP project, if I understand it right, the county board voted this down last year or the year before, because we were compliant with this 2013 radio requirements. Isn't this the same project?
No. This is the replacement of the mobiles and portable radios.
That's exactly right, and that's what we voted down.
There was a piece, I mean, the project that was presented last year included, and Steve and the sheriff, correct me if I'm wrong, included this piece of it. And what was approved was everything but this piece, and this piece would be deferred to future years. And I think there was a small piece of the thing that was done in 2012, that project, just a small piece of that was a compliance thing, right?
Over the air was voted down, and that's what's in the project. It's the same stuff they talked about, but the convenience of not having to bring their squad cars in to get these upgrades done.
If you guys have your sheriff's project in there is a breakdown on the third page of this, on what's included in here. Are the mobiles and portables that are in here, are they replacements because they hold monthly?
Well, serviceability and parts availability are the biggest reason for both of those. I mean, I don't have the inventory with me, but I know Jeff had told me in the past that the current inventory is very big. We're talking 15 years old in a lot of cases, some of these radios. And we've been able to literally buy pieces and parts down to the transistor level to replace some of these radios, or to repair some of these radios. Others, we've been able to, surfing the internet, find pieces and parts. So these things, he's been able to limp them along, but it's gotten to the point where the availability of these parts, it'd be like putting tubes in a TV type of a situation. So he's been able to keep them running, but he's kind of got good sense to do that, and that's what this project for the mobiles, portables, chargers, etc. That portion of it, that is very important, in my opinion, and Justin.
The council.
And the council as well,
Which has got
similar in age to these older radios. The council, I don't know the vintage of it, but it is, I believe, 15 years old.
At least, it's good.
Might be more.
Like 60s technology too.
Right.
I've got, I must have talked to somebody over at the sheriff's department, I got that console, that replacement of that console, that mid 5,000 console is the most important piece of that thing.
You told me these consoles are only good for 15 years?
Which is quite long if we're talking technology.
Yeah, that's several lifetimes.
Yeah, that's 3 lifetimes.
You bring up that these things are 1960s technology. That's not the one we're talking about here. Aren't we talking about the squad recorders and workstation replacement?
Communication system project is what we're talking about.
Well, okay, just a minute. And why are your numbers, you list this number here as 25,650.
Well, that's not the one we're talking about, Mike.
It's the
It's
one
the one on the other.
That's the one I'm talking
It's the
about.
one on the other, it's on the other side, on the debt side.
I thought we were talking about still in this,
No, in the
on
borrowing,
sales tax.
in the borrowing.
All right, on the back side.
Yeah, the one below that, communication system.
Yeah, well, I agree. That's the
768.
other one with the 1960s technology. I'm trying to find out, and I'm asking this question. The squad recorders and the workstation replacement is what we voted out
No, that wasn't even.
the year before.
Well, that was not even a
That wasn't even a kit the year before.
It was not a kit, it was some standalone borrowing money.
No. It was, it was a 2012 too.
What this is to get those on a rotation basis.
That's a 5-year project that we were talking about.
Here's
Yeah,
And that
works on the workstations, right?
Workstations, and
No.
that's 25.
Now, these portables, is that all of them at once, or is that on?
They had it all when we were ended up splitting it between 2 years. And they did this piece in 2012.
The ones that, yeah,
This
the ones
is the
that are
piece
not.
that's the
This
communication.
was for the
That's the
fire.
replacement of those.
No, that wasn't
Start
even
on
listed,
application.
because that came
It says
after.
47 and 46.
That was not for the fire
That's all of them,
department,
isn't it?
because that didn't even run through as a good project.
47 of the mobile radios and 46 of varying hardware and software. Or am I reading something wrong? Are we not replacing all of the radios? This is only a third or a quarter, or what is it then?
Slide 7 here.
I forget what an inventory is as far as radios go. I don't know what our total inventory of radios are, but this is to get the ones that aren't up to, that are getting out of date,
Yeah,
up to
it's not the
speed.
entire,
So that way we can start getting on a rotation, kind of like we have planned as far as for like with the workstations and the tires. So we get on a rotation.
within recent, last couple of years, I know that they've had some radios that have failed, and they have purchased replacements already. So those, I do not believe, are in that count. There's no reason for them to be included. I mean, if they're, obviously, if we replaced them within the last 2 years, we're not going to replace them. So we would not need, the 47 or whatever. I'm not sure, I don't know, like I said, I'm not the inventory of the radios with me. Yeah.
Well, how many are we replacing? Because, you're looking at, of the APX 7500s, the mobiles, 296,000. They won what, about 4,000, 5,000 apiece? So if they're 5,000 apiece, you've got probably more mobiles there than you've got people now. They're also replacing portables.
The time this kit was put together, that was a year ago.
I mean,
So
is it now?
Changed since then.
Okay, so you're saying it could be a whole lot less than this, or
Not a
this
whole lot
number,
less.
this number is larger than it really has to be.
What was that, this is here, mobile radio detached current install, it's 32,000?
We're gonna go get Jeff who knows about the
Is that last one means or no? Or is that to install them all?
Yeah, it's supported in the cars.
Yeah.
32,000 ticket ones up. That'll be my guess.
We don't-
Some, is it something?
Don't ask me, who's from public property here? Ken,
Public safety.
public safety, I mean.
Well, Mike,
I'm the
Mike.
one.
he's the one who brought it up.
Steve went to get it, Jeff.
Okay.
I mean, this was approved by the Public Safety Committee, and they scored it. So I'm assuming they know what they're getting.
Well, that's an assumption. You may not be able to honestly answer that. That we know what we're getting.
Okay. So we can over the air. Program all the radios over the air.
That's each one. That's the one we know about.
The over-the-air console, Bob, what that allows is that instead of having the vehicle in, and the guy going out there and doing a couple of keyboards and keystrokes to reprogram it as they make changes. This isn't something that has to be done every week. It's maybe once a year. And so instead of him going out to the vehicle, he can do it inside and do them all at once. Is it worth $120,000?
Well, I don't know, but
if I were paying for it, it wouldn't be.
To me, it's not the big issue here. The big issue is are we replacing all the radios, and then 5 years from now, since this technology is only going to last a few years, are we going to come with another million? By then, it'll be well over $1 million to replace all the radios, or are we going to put it on a schedule like we were going to do the workstations, which I think is a great and prudent idea. And I think we should do that with these mobiles if we're actually, on the bottom here it says the portables are good for 5 years, the mobiles are good for 7 years under the estimated service life of improvement. And the over-the-air console is good for 15 years, which is great. So for that $120,000, that's a good deal in my opinion. But for 5 years for the portables, and so 5 years from now, we're going to come back asking for another 46 and 47 radios, and then it's going to be well over $1 million. So should we be only replacing part of them today, and then replace as we go, as we talked about earlier, and I don't want to go back there again, but shouldn't this be in the budget as we're replacing X number of our radios every year so that we keep them all current? We don't have to come to KIP for $1 million to replace radios every 5 years.
Thanks.
And so hopefully they've got the answers now.
Jeff.
Jeff?
Aye.
Question is the number of radios. Could you give us the numbers, what they are?
Yes, and on here should be the exact number of radios.
47.
47 and
Yeah,
46.
47 is the current, and 46 of the. It's 47 of the portable radios, 46 of the mobile radios that we're going to replace.
Is that all of them?
That's all of them, yeah. That's the ones in our squad cars, the ones the officers carry on their hips for portables, and also there's a couple extra that are scattered around other utility vehicles that we have, boats and things like that.
Does it include jail?
No, jail is totally separate. That's something else, yeah.
They
Totally
don't
separate.
have the same kind of radios?
No, they have different radios.
Okay.
So we have 46 sworn officers that carry a radio on their ground every day.
Yes, that's how many are the total portables that they use in their fleet right now. Yeah.
No, I mean, I understand the fleet of cars or whatever, but I don't understand, we don't have 47 officers on duty at any one time. I'm assuming we share radios, won't we? No. Everybody has their own radio,
They
takes
have
home
their
at
own
night.
radio that they take home
Okay.
with them or use, they keep it with them.
But we are replacing everything we have.
Yes.
I don't think that's prudent, in my
Wouldn't it be
opinion.
better to do that like over a 5-year period?
Well, what happens when you do it over a yearly period like that, so many a year, you could allocate money for it every year, and then when you have enough money, then you could replace them at some point in time. But what happens is every time you buy a radio, the next year you get another radio that has a different version of firmware. Sometimes that model radio disappears. It's not in existence anymore. We have different models of radios in our fleet right now. And what happens is when you try to update those radios, you end up using different software, different firmwares. You have to update firmware to keep them similar. You can't clone the same information from one radio to the next without going through all kinds of exercises to try and get that to go into the various radios. What you do if you replace them all at one time is now they're all identical. And now you can clone the information.
Jeff, to make it in layman's terms, basically, because the world of high-tech changes so quickly, so rapidly, it'd be prudent to buy them all at one time, because eventually you're going to have to replace them 3, 4, 5 years down.
That's
down the road,
exactly
instead
it.
of doing it piecemeal.
Right.
Okay.
And is that kind of what you've been doing in the past? We have been replacing X number one year, X number next year.
Well, it wasn't even that much.
We weren't even
We were just
replacing
replacing them as we
We were
needed them.
fixing them.
So you get the radios we have radios that are from 1998, which are getting pretty ancient. And 2/3 of our fleet is already obsolete. We cannot get any firmware updates or anything for them anymore. So they're not being supported. And also, the 2/3 of our fleet is an older radio that has a scanning issue, which is a potential problem in the future. Some of the other counties found themselves just recently, back in February, that they had to replace their radios on the fly because it wouldn't scan properly with the newer systems that are out there, the newer simulcast systems.
I think we're talking about consistency here.
Right.
Because the world of high-tech changes so rapidly, so quickly, I think it makes more sense to keep these, if we're going to have to change them every 5 years, instead of changing constantly a few every year, by the time you get to that first group of changes, it'll be so obsolete.
Right.
That making sense?
That makes sense, yeah. And you're always going to have a radio that fails or something. You have to get a new radio. It's going to be the oddball in the group, but you can put up with a couple of those. But when you have 4, 5, 6, 7 different fractures of different models, different firmware versions, all this through all these radios. That's where you really run into problems.
Randy?
Jeff, there was a comment made while you was coming in here about the community only uses over-the-air programming once a year. That's, to me, what I know what you do, that's incorrect.
Right. You use it 2-3 times a month probably. Anytime you get an update, you would update that information to the server, and that information gets propagated to all the radios, yeah. I'm going through a update of the radios right now. It's taken me like a couple of months now to get that. I'm still not through all the radios, but I'm trying to get the last few now. And I've already got updates that have come through that I have to change on the next version when I go back again. So it would be nice to be able to get that all out there right away. Or if you get an error in the radio, you put something in wrong, you could, within days, you have that information propagated out. Now, these radios would have that over-the-air capability, but we don't have the over-the-air programming feature in our infrastructure yet. So, but everything's set up for it. So if we decide to go with that, then we'll be able to implement that.
Well, I think Bob was saying that even if we put every year put money away, when you got the park together, then buy the whole group together, then you're compatible. Everything's compatible. But it can be in the budget rather than coming back and putting the whole thing on a KIP thing. Budget so much every year, and I think that's what Bob was alluding to.
Right, and the whole idea is that on a replacement plan is that you kind of, the radios are going to be good for 7 years at least when you get the new radios. And what we do is at that point in time, we start looking at them every year. How many failures are we getting? And if we don't have many failures, we just keep going. We can go 15 years or so. Who knows how long. But then when you get to a certain point where you hit issues, where you can't make them work properly anymore, then at that point in time is when you say, okay, now we have the money there, because you've been allocating it every year. We have the money there, now we can go ahead and get them replaced at that point in time. So,
if we replace these, Jeff, what happens to the old radios?
a lot of them will end up being spares that we can put in like the mobile command vehicle. We can use them for some of the boats, the other vehicles, utility vehicles, the DNR trailer, all kinds of different places that we can utilize those as spares. They're just backup radios that have basic capabilities that we can use for,
That's something fire departments could use too?
Fire departments could use them. Matter of fact, Navarino EMS was asking, when we get rid of our radios, can they get some? And we can, of course, we can charge them a little bit for them, but basically, they're part of the county. That can be arranged however you decide the best way to dispose of those radios. But we still have some uses for them where they could be used many years yet, but not as a primary radio.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for Jeff?
So does this include the warranty?
Yes,
The price I'm talking about?
It includes the 1-year warranty plus the extended warranty to go 3 years. That's included in that.
Okay.
Any other questions of Jeff? No? Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, I hope I answered all your questions then.
We know who to call. When it comes to radios, you get a hold of Jeff.
Ghostbusters.
All right, Ed. Where are we going from here?
So what we're saying, if we support this, then this is a one-time thing. We're never going to have to do this again because from this point on, it'll be a budgeted item. And so that'll be part of the budget rather than coming back as a KIP project.
Who said that?
I'm assuming that.
You know what they say, one assuming.
And gee, never. Don't ever say never.
Well, I think it makes sense because you plan every 5 to 7 years then. You know you're going to have an expense on mobile radio. So,
Yeah. And I agree if we could do that.
Well, then get away from the KIP project because every time we see a KIP project, it looks like the sheriff's department is taking up a great portion of it.
Yep.
And let me clarify, I don't care that it's a KIP project. I care that it's a borrowing project. Borrowing costs us extra money. We don't have the money. It's not in our budget. It's not in any other of our funds. So we're out borrowing for this project. That's the only thing I have against what's being proposed today, is that we borrow for this project. Which is why I made the suggestion that even though I don't like putting things off, we have to borrow for the roof. It's a 20-year expense. This is a 5-year expense again. This is borrowing money to pay for a 5-year to 7-year item that they're hoping to last longer than that. This is like borrowing for your car and putting it on a 15-year loan, and it's going to last you 6 years. You know, so
We wouldn't, I mean, this part of the
I know.
borrowing, you know, we have to match up to the life of the radio. So
Right,
we wouldn't do-
so it'd be
like a 5-year thing. And even when this was part of the project last year, that piece of it, when we talked to our bond advisors, we said this piece of it has to be paid off in 5 years.
Right.
Because we don't want it out there longer than what it's going to
it's
last.
going to last. I understand that.
To answer your, a little along that same line, Bob, remember this came out before, and it was put off, and the world and the communications of the sheriff's department didn't fall apart. In other words, the radios can be used for another year. And as Jeff pointed out, any radios, they may give some away to other fire departments or something, but they'll keep some as spares and they can continue to use them. It certainly may be easier from his standpoint, and I don't really know how many hours of work he has in updates, because I don't know how many updates they really have coming. It may be a wish list type thing, because it makes his job easier to do the updating and things if you have all uniform radios. Because obviously if you have different models in there, you're going to have a different updating process. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be done, or that they couldn't be continued to be used for another year.
Well, I don't know that if you know, when you look at the ratings by the committee, the mobile command center rated higher. So I'm not quite sure, you know, why we're here with this and the mobile command center is not even being considered. So
That was a separate project, wasn't it?
sure, it's a separate project, but in the ratings of their projects, it rated higher than you know, than what the committee rated it higher than what we're looking at here today.
Can I add something in there? The mobile command or the radios. Yeah, you could always hold off another year, but this 2/3 of our fleet are the older radios, which have the scanning issues, which could be a potential problem there, especially the older radios, the oldest radios. So that's something that probably. Now with the new simulcast and everything, that we really should keep that in mind, that could be an issue. Oconto County and Marinette County both had to replace their radios because of that. One of the reasons was there's a lot of technical stuff to it, but basically it's the issue with scanning analog and the digital channels together in the same scan list. It has issues with that, and these radios would have that problem. So we're probably getting to the point here with those obsolete radios that they weren't designed for this kind of a system, really. And this came up just like in February that we found this issue. So it's kind of like it's really getting to a point where that could have potential safety issues there.
It's that kind of.
At some point, they're going to figure out how to do a simulcast to a cell phone. They'll give them all a cell phone and pay $39 a piece for them and be covered.
Do you ever carry a cell phone while you're chasing after somebody? I have. It's not easy.
Cell phones are point to point. They're not really made for broadcasting to everybody that's out there at the same time. It's a little different type of radio.
When this goes to county board, do we vote on them by different sections? I mean, can we vote on sales tax
We can do whatever you want.
on each? Well, I don't want the debt to be a deal breaker for the rest, or vice versa.
I think when we take them to county board, we probably would, what we've done is we've done preliminary debt resolution right away too, because there's no point in approving the project if the funding's not complete.
But I don't want the rest of these projects to be held up if people have issues with
What are your suggestions as how we should handle it on county board floor? I mean, we've done it different ways.
I'd rather do each of these 4 sections separately, in case somebody has an issue with where we're spending the whole chunk of money. Then I don't want somebody not to like that and then vote no against the whole thing because they don't like where we're spending the whole chunk of money. I'd like each one to be kind of stand on its own merit.
We'll talk to Tony.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, along that same line, if we were to keep them separate, we could take the communications project and take it by a resolution, because whatever the county board does, they can undo. And we have that resolution there now saying that we've got this fund of sales tax money sitting there drawing next to no interest. We could very well fund the communications project here out of that sales tax money sitting there. But it would have to have a resolution coming to the county board to change the
Right.
previous resolution.
But just keep in mind, you run the risk of taking that fund down so low you don't have it for future years. And there's very little.
We don't have it for what? I mean, we're saving things for things we don't even know what we're saving them for.
Well, there's
I mean,
there's
the
all
need
kinds
is now.
there's all kinds of projects listed on here for the next 5 years. I mean, you have no ability to raise any other funds to do it. I mean, environmental impact fees, when they're gone, they're gone. When you use the sales tax, when it's gone, it's gone. You know, you can't make it up. So, I mean, we've used portions of, different funding mechanisms for capital projects for the last, I don't know how many years, and I think it's worked well for the county, and it's given them ability to keep moving forward each year, to do some projects each year. You can't get them all done at once, but it's better than what we did before when we didn't do any of them.
And then if we're going to address them separately on the county board floor, if we decide to do that, would we do that here as well? Each section?
I would think we want to do it here. I'm afraid that once you open it up on the county board floor, all our work might be for naught.
This will go to the finance committee next.
And then we get cut up there.
To be included in the budget.
But like you said, our recommendation, the borrowing is going to be a separate resolution anyway.
You might want to do the those two projects that are listed there, you might want to do both of those individually. I think that's what we did last year. Is any projects that were for borrowing, we did those individually.
So send it all as one and then send those two separate?
Yeah, but we
They're
can
gonna
also,
be
we
separate.
can send these by section separately too, if that's what you want to do, it's up to you.
I'm asking, I'm just throwing it out there for you. Question and answer time. Just an idea, maybe it's a bad one, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, the whole thing about the money that's sitting out there that we don't have a chance at is all this 1% carryover can really be used instead of going and borrowing all the time. We sit there and we want to go and borrow and we find out we got $200,000 in 1% carryover in some department. This should all be brought into the general fund and then we can, when we don't have enough money, then go and borrow. Because every time you borrow, you're paying interest. And that's coming out of my pocket.
I think the other thing you need to realize is that there is a difference between what you can borrow for and what you can't borrow for. And the 1% has been used for a number of different reasons, to allow managers to manage their budget. If they're going to go over, or if something comes up during the year, they have that 1% to fall back on. It also has assisted in discouraging departments from spending all of their money at the end of the year if they have money left, and that has happened. I remember before we had this, where departments would come in and they have a whole laundry list of things they wanted to get because they knew they were going to have money left in their budget. And I think, that doesn't happen anymore because they know if there's stuff that they need, they've got a fallback because the budgets have gotten, from operations, have gotten so tight. That's why you're seeing some of these things come through as capital improvement projects, because there is no other way to do it. So, the funding sources a lot of times can only be used for certain things. And when you run out of money for operations, you cannot go out and borrow money for operations.
But you can cut your expenditures. If you don't have enough income coming in, then you just quit spending more.
It gets down to that, and I've said this for years, it gets down to the point that somebody's got to make a determination as to what services you want to provide and what services you don't want to provide. And nobody has stepped forward to make that decision, and that's got to come from the county board, and that's not happening.
I agree, and I think the county board has been that they're elected their duties in not facing that. It's a reminder all over again of the Maple Lane. We knew the problem was coming 5 years before it got here, and yet we didn't do anything about it. We kind of stuck our head in the sand. We were kind of like paralyzed. Here we have the same thing. We're facing the point, and I guess I have to sympathize with Diane in this case, where she's trying to be creative on getting borrowing done so that we have money left over out of the tax levy to continue to spend at the rate we're going. On the other hand, the board has to make a decision sooner or later, and I don't know if it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line, we're going to get to the point where we don't have enough money to cover the normal wage increases coming up. Because the wages are still, even though we have a kind of a sort of semi-freeze, they're still increasing faster than our revenue stream is increasing. So unless we have an awful lot of construction in Shawano County and our revenue stream goes up, we're going to be caught at a point where we just can't afford to pay the people. So then you're at the point of, you've got to do something. Where do you cut back? You've got to make some decisions as to what services you don't have to provide anymore.
I'll tell you what I told the Finance Committee yesterday is that, the issues that we have with the budget aren't so much on the expenditure side as they are on the revenue side. When you're looking at the decrease in shared revenue, you look at our interest income. Our interest income is down anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000 from what we used to get in the past. I mean, our revenue streams, and we've looked at different revenue streams, and departments have stepped forward and been creative with what they can, but even some of those revenue streams are disappearing. Public health, some of the things that they used to do, the services they used to provide and be able to charge for, they can no longer charge for, and you're finding that happening in other places. So I mean, our revenue streams are pretty much drying up.
Well, that's kind of, from your viewpoint as a staff member, the problem is on the revenue side, because if we had enough revenue, we could pay for everybody's needs and everybody's wants. I look at it as the same thing that happened down in Madison there. Walker took a look at it and said, we can't continue to spend at the rate we are, and we can't continue to keep increasing. So at some point, we have to cut expenses. And I don't think we've done very much. I've been sitting this period on the Finance Committee. We haven't really, as far as I can tell, done anything about looking forward to taking advantages of some of the tools that Walker gave us under the budget repair bill. We haven't looked really at decreasing some of the expenditures that we have. We haven't looked at those things. And eventually we have to. Because, when your revenue stream dries up, there's not an awful lot you can do about that. We as a state, as a county, can't go and increase the sales tax. We can't do a lot of the increasing the revenue, but we can control the expenditures. We can control what we're spending. And county board is no different than your own personal finances.
Diane, what did, from debt last year, what was that amount, do you recall?
As far as what we
Borrowed
paid, how much we borrowed last year?
on this same form?
I believe we borrowed 1.2 for the radios, and then we borrowed for something for the highway, and that was a couple $100,000.
Something, it was 1.4 million.
1.4 million we borrowed last year.
Well, it sounds like this is going to get debated on county board floor again, and I'm not even sure what agenda item I'm on, but I guess I'll go with 6 and say that I move to approve the yellow sheet as proposed, which would be the funding proposal for the CIP project.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion been made and second to forward the CIP funding proposal. Leave as is, no changes.
No changes.
Move forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'm opposing.
Roll call, Ken, please. Roll call vote, please.
Never roll call vote. Randy?
Yes.
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 No.
No. No.
Yes.
How
4-3.
what is the consensus on how we want this to go county board. Do you want the two debt projects to go separate?
Well, they're gonna be separate when you ask for borrowing funding anyway, aren't they not?
We did it last, well, no, we would normally, what we've always done in the past, it's always been a resolution for these projects. Last year was the first year we did we had 4 projects. We had a resolution to approve each project individually, and we had a resolution to approve the preliminary borrowing.
For those borrowing projects.
Those were borrowing projects.
Right, we only have, like I said, that has to be a separate resolution to borrow the money.
Right.
So,
But I
so
mean,
what you're saying is you want to break these 2 projects
You want-
out into 2 resolutions for borrowing.
I'm asking you if that's what you want.
Sounds that might be prudent since there's been a great deal of discussion here as to the merits of borrowing for those projects. So I guess we run those 2 separately and then act on them accordingly.
I had a question on the yellow sheet, Mr. Chairman, that we were just voting on.
This is the one you're voting on, Marlon. We haven't
That's
got to
one
that
here?
other yellow
Okay.
one yet. This is the funding
Okay,
proposal
all
one.
right.
We need to look at that other yellow one
Yeah,
yet
because
too.
I wasn't too sure how far we went down. I thought we went down to 18, but I see things on here that are below 18.
The only one that's below is that Milky Theater.
Well, but the card reader was too.
With card readers below 18.
Card reader's below 18, and yet it was on here for 55,000.
I know, but this
This
is,
isn't-
yeah, we need to clear
This is item 9 on our agenda.
Right.
We'll get to this one in a minute, I hope.
Okay, now my other question is, do you want each of these sections broke down separately or all as one?
They're gonna come in the book like this, aren't they?
Right.
Broke down anyway,
Yep.
right? So they'll be broke down. We're not gonna vote on them separately though.
No, we're gonna approve usually what we do is we just approve the plan. Okay, got it.
Well, I think that's why you gotta have it separate. I think you're gonna get more no votes on the whole plan unless you take Randy's suggestion.
The borrowing is a separate issue, and those are the only 2 items. The other items we're not borrowing from, and if they want to vote them off, well then let them do that on board floor. But let's try to do some semblance of a job and say, well, here's our recommendation. If they want to amend it on the board floor, they will. Let's not take it to them as bit by bit, because then what do we waste our last hour, 2 hours for?
Okay, Diane,
Now, this one.
The yellow one.
we'll do the yellow one, that'll be
I don't know what color this
finalized
one is. And
2013,
Off.
20,
What is this called?
KIP project
This
schedule.
is buff.
Buff so instead, just kidding.
Okay, this yellow sheet right here, under the 2013 column, the ones that are in bold are the ones that were included on this funding proposal. So the ones that are unbolded need to be moved to a different year. And then the other question, is there something on here that should be taken off altogether? Because I know last year we got on county board floor, and there was one that ended up getting taken off altogether. So let's not take it if there's something.
Oh, that was the Johnson thing.
The energy.
Johnson
Planted all on something before.
Yeah, what
Last
was
year?
that? Yeah. Could be
I thought
followed.
it came up and we went through it. It got sent back to nowhere.
It got sent back a couple times, and by the time that it could have been brought back to the floor, it was 2012 already, and there really wasn't any point in doing it.
So
So
if the yellow sheet doesn't get approved, nothing is lost. We're just where we were
but
last
the
year.
thing is, we've approved the plan in the past, or maybe the motion is to accept the plan, I'm not sure what it is, but we have done that in the past.
Well, I don't think we can accept it as presented
No,
because.
we need to make some
Right,
changes on
we
it
need,
right
we
now.
need, I guess,
So like the home command vehicle upgrades, do I move that to 2014?
I believe so.
Everybody okay with that?
What are you moving it to?
2014?
Next year.
Yes.
We'll get a printout on this too.
Yeah, I'll send a copy out. The card reader to 2014.
Diane, do you think that card reader thing we gotta put this to sleep pretty soon. That is not costing the county $55,000.
No, it isn't.
No, it's less than that, but
It's a
we
lot
think
less
it's,
than
we think it's less than that. There are some, and Tom, I'm gonna call him, we need to talk about our phone conversation with the guy from the state regarding the,
Joe Schreiber?
yeah, the gas things, and what he said regarding the stuff that they were cited for.
But those were taken care of.
Those are taken care of. The only thing that probably isn't taken care of, and Tom's gonna call Clarence, is that he needs to get a Class A and a Class B certification in order to be operating those gas tanks. The other thing, I mean, that is a requirement. It's a safety issue.
The fact of
Because
it is, Larry Spurberg sat right where Mike is right here and said these things were taken care of.
But
Not the
not
certification,
that
everything else was.
certification. Everything else was.
Everything else that they were audited for was taken care of. The tanks and all of that other stuff. But Clarence does not have that certification he's gotta have to sell or pump.
But it's not just selling and pumping, but just to manage it.
Just manage
because
it, yeah.
There's things that they need to be recorded. There's like a maintenance log that he has to do, and he has to monitor that system, just like a gas station has to monitor their gas pumps, or we're all in jeopardy. And that probably needs to be taken care of, but Tom's gonna check with Clarence. He hasn't been able to do that. The other thing that we asked him about was the card reader with the pumps that they have, and the pumps that they have are mechanical pumps, and in order to work with a card reader, there's probably gonna have to be something done with the pumps
You gotta upgrade them.
so that they're electronic. I mean, a lot of times when you've seen a lot of the gas stations, when they've gone to the card reader thing, they've pretty much changed their tanks, they've changed a lot of things, and I'm not sure that that's been looked into. Plus, there's some other issues that were regarding the card reader that have been discussed. Marlon brought up some of them today. They were discussed at the Finance Committee also.
I know, but this has been through the city, and the city said absolutely, we approve it a long time ago. We're sitting here playing with it. This is ridiculous. I'm getting sick and tired of this.
Dan, am I misunderstanding this? The Shawano County share
Is less than, this is the,
is 4,000, 4,500,
this is, yeah, this is the, what this is the total cost of the project. Let me just take a look. The county's portion is 5,500.
55.
But even if the county's portion was $1, if he's not certified to sell gas, he's not properly managing what he's doing out there, or he's not prepared at this time to, wouldn't it be prudent to put it in next year's CIP? I mean, it's not the cost of the project, it's the fact that they're not really ready for the project.
How many years we
And
put
I
this
don't,
off, Bob?
I agree, Bob.
You
I
have
don't
to be
even know if we
compliant
should
to
do
it,
it.
Gene.
Huh?
I don't even think we should do it
Well, but to
myself.
move it next year, and then next year, whoever's on CIP can sit here and say, okay, we shouldn't even do this. But for us, they're not ready. So if they're not ready, let's at least put it to 2014, so that by 2014, they're ready to do the project, somebody can act on it.
We know that that $55,000 cost there is going, the cost shared by the federal government, is that, or the FAA, whoever's paying for it, is that going to be there forever? Is this something we can post off?
I
Is
don't
there a
think
date
it
at
is.
this point?
I don't know for sure, and I don't want to say one thing or another, Ron, because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth on this, but I don't know, but we should find out. But the thing of it is we're putting this off every year.
Well, it's hard to help those that don't help themselves.
Thank you.
Or won't help us help them?
There's also, I think, a liability issue there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's gonna be selling gas or oil or fuel, whatever it's called, so much I know. And he doesn't have an upgraded card reader, and he's gotta have a certification. Something goes wrong, who's liable?
Well, I think we're fairly immune from liability to the airport.
Think we are?
Yeah, I think we're fairly immune there. Because, airplane comes in, crashes out there, we're not really on the hook for it. But I think there's been a lot of, and I've been on several committees now that have reviewed this card reader for at least 4 or 5 years. And there's always the questions that come up, and they seem to keep getting bigger, and the thing expands. And yet, nobody from the airport has ever come to any of these meetings and explained what they were, so that we could ask them the question. You know, nobody's really ever come and explained why we should approve this, and whether they could answer the question as to whether it was something that they could do now if we did give them the money.
I think at the first CIP meeting, we had Larry Sperber here and Lee were both here.
But they didn't answer any of the questions regarding...
They answered every question, Marlon, that we asked them.
Well, we didn't know the right questions to ask at that time.
So for this.
My proposal is we move it to next year.
Yes.
And I was just,
Yes. Yes, it wasn't 13, push it to next year.
I was working on 13, so.
14.
last comment on this card reader, we're subsidizing private business. And I don't know when the county started that, but I sure hope we don't continue if we're doing it.
Well, the other choice is to take it completely off the schedule. And we don't have all the information, so I thought maybe we should give it a chance for next year.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Courthouse North entrance,
Next year.
2014. Okay, the painting in the courthouse.
14.
14.
Just on that painting before you go off, when I looked at that, I was visualizing somebody going and putting a coat of paint on the walls and saying, why are we debating that? And then I realized there are no paint on any of the walls there. That is all varnished woodwork in that courtroom. And I've been told there are some little chips and nicks or something, but I would hate to see somebody going in there and stripping it off and trying to redo it. It just simply isn't at that point. The woodwork looks pretty good yet, you know. There's not enough to justify stripping the thing off, and I'm not too sure who came up with this idea of putting $32,000 into redoing the woodwork in that room.
The request was made by one of the judges.
Well, branch one, which judge is that?
Branch 1 is Havoc.
Hobby? He hasn't been here too long yet. He sits on the bench for a while.
It's been here a while.
Yeah, but
So what do we want to do
I
with
could
that?
certainly see moving that up so we could think about it and you could justify it, and maybe people here can go and take it and actually look at it for themselves. Look at that room and see whether it really does need refinishing.
So you want to push it to 15?
Or 16.
Well, pick a year.
I'm good with that.
What
Okay.
year? Tell me which year.
Yeah. Randy, got a year?
Randy, you got a year?
16.
Okay, agreed.
So do I, Randy.
You get that speeding ticket. I went, let's try to get it now.
16, yeah.
Well, by
Painting, I think, is the wrong
you're
word there too. Somebody should take that word painting off.
going to be down there putting a fence around the Lincoln land.
It's really special.
He explained how special it is, yeah. I did that.
I'll check with Steve, I'll get a better for that.
Okay.
You're kidding, morning.
Professional painting and
Because if we do it wrong, the whole thing is ruined.
Okay.
That must have been that one you missed.
The employee parking lot,
He talked about it.
Yeah, you weren't here.
I could have missed one, yeah.
What is the picture of change?
employee parking lot.
This one.
Do it 14. Did I hear somebody say 2014?
15.
Which one are we on? I'm sorry.
Employee parking lot.
How bad is the employee parking lot?
Well, I think
Funding water.
covers the tunnel that. I think
So
that's
bad
the
he parks on the
tunnel.
street.
Yeah, so bad it parks on the street.
If we do the tunnel, we.
No,
this
that's the
customers.
public parking lot.
this is the employee parking lot that's across the
Oh, that's
street.
just across the street, oh, okay.
Granted it.
I actually did
Broken
drive
windshield
over
and
there.
dents.
Put it to 14.
Look at it again then.
Now we can look at it next year if they want to push it back. we can.
That project again. I think he has on here in case it becomes a state mandate, but he just got a permit for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it won't, it
16.
doesn't need to be addressed in the next 2 years for sure.
So, what are you 16?
Yes.
Okay, the Energy Fitness Center,
Chairman, I'd like to make
Energy
a comment on that if I could.
Go ahead.
It was ranked really low at committee and it was ranked really low here, so I'm okay with it if we just pull it off. I don't have a problem with that.
Really?
If you're not interested, it was ranked pretty low, so.
The utility plant line, distribute all.
No,
this
we're
is
talking
the
about the
Energy
fitness.
Fitness Center.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Take it off, move it, maybe.
If you guys are okay with it, yeah, nobody seemed real interested in it, we can might as well just pull it off.
Okay,
Can we take the gazebo off too?
Negative. Giving up one, Marlon, you want two right away?
Can we leave it where it is?
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll
okay,
talk about
that's
that
it.
next year, Marlon.
I'll leave everything else the way it is. All that highway stuff is under the jurisdiction of the highway department.
Well, while we're at it, you just skipped over the Crawford Center expansion for $250,000.
Yeah, I'd like to drop that.
Where are we?
Oh.
That was on the first page, we just.
You know what, we should look at all the other ones that are already on here for 14, 15, 16, and 17, and see if there's anything else you want off of here. I'm sorry, I forgot that.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah, Crawford Extended Expansion, I think that's the biggest wish list thing I've seen come forward. And I certainly hate to think that the hockey league thinks they're entitled to that because somebody put it on.
Okay, see, is there consensus to take it off?
Wipe it off unless, who knows, maybe for $14,000 we can sell the building. They got $14,000 in their kitty, let them buy
But
it.
you know what, Marlon, they'll
We
put
got
it
110.
Yeah, I know, they'd be giving it back to us. Or they'd be like the Croco Park. They won't take it for free until we put a bunch of money into it.
So just wipe out the Crawford Center?
Yes.
That would be my thought.
Cross that one off.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, save us $250,000 right there.
Anything else? I'll update this stuff and I think I'll send it to you. I think I have everybody's email address so I can send up an email.
Was the courthouse roof tunnel replacement and the parking lot on the same year anyway?
Yeah, we changed, 2014.
We've got them both the same year.
Yeah, we had to-
Okay, fine.
So the courthouse, the tunnel, I'm lost.
The courthouse tunnel replacement is in 2014. We
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that the customer parking lot was in the same year, so.
That's one of those things that actually should have been a
Oh, I got it. Okay.
a KIP combined, to be honest. I mean, because you can't really do one without the other. Can't replace the roof without doing the parking lot. Can't do the parking lot not just by doing the tunnel. So if anything, we should get them on.
Are we having trouble with the courthouse roof here right now?
Oh yeah, this roof needs to be replaced.
How much water coming through it?
I don't know that answer. I was told we're patching right now. I don't want it to become the jail again. I don't want to be.
Where's Steve? Is he there?
I don't-
Anybody, Tim, do you know anything? Have we ever patched the roof here? Anybody know anything? What?
I think over my time here, I think you probably have, I couldn't tell you exactly.
So I just don't want it to become the jail roof where we're sitting here with patches and bales. And let's get it done on a timely basis. So
Put a tarp on it, Marla.
blue one.
A little milky left over.
Yeah, you won't be able to see that.
You won't see it here.
I want a red
Cut
one.
around everything on the roof.
No, if we bring it down all the way around the building, it's big enough and we don't even need the blinds.
So we need to set a meeting date for like November to.
Do you want to make a motion to send this to the finance committee?
I'll make a motion to send this to finance.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and second to send the finalized 2013-2016 KIP project schedule to finance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposing.
I oppose.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Want to pose, did you vote, Gene?
Yes,
Okay, you're in favor.
yes. And I think it was this committee we asked to get a copy of the 1% carryover from all the departments. It wasn't this committee?
I don't believe we did.
It was the admin
That would be finance to
It
do.
was the admin, okay. Okay, thank you.
Or admin.
Future agenda items.
Well, what's next? What's our next step? Nothing now? Until
I think
after
that's-
county board?
I think nothing now until we meet to go over the process and looking at what we want to do for the future and establishing some guidelines on how we handle different things that come up
We'll just go to county board in September,
October
or with the budget.
with the budget, yeah.
So we don't need to meet till November?
I think so.
Can we pick a date?
Sure. But one of the future, is that what we're going to discuss, like you said? The future?
Yes. Yeah, if anybody's got any ideas,
Call me, remind me of the meeting.
if anybody's got any ideas, if they want to send them either to me or to Nina, we can kind of compile a list of things.
Pertaining to KIP.
Just anything.
Just anything or pertaining to KIP?
Pertaining to the KIP.
Let's check.
And enough other complaints about handling anybody else's. If you have other complaints, please take it to the appropriate department. Send it to Keith Marquardt.
We want Tom to present the Johnson controls.
Yeah. If you look into the Johnson control thing,
I was talking,
Project, yeah.
what, Johnson Controls?
It's called the Energy Stewardship Program.
It's a long story, I'll tell it to you someday.
Take your time. I mean,
you'd be good for that.
Yeah, that's right.
We would have had that. We would have
Now you're
Discussing the
regretting
next
that.
meeting date, so we can.
Very solid
Is it October we can meeting?
When do you want to have November?
12, no? First weeks, I
I think
think.
it's Friday.
First 2 weeks of the month are never good.
We're in the,
Third week is deer hunting, probably.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't that the,
Well,
I don't care, whatever you want to have.
When are we meeting? In what month?
November.
first 2 weeks are bad, Bob?
Well, I don't know, it's just a general
Otherwise, we
word.
can meet the,
Yeah, 16th.
like, the county board, the budget is done on the 22nd, I believe, of October, so if you wanted to meet the week after that, you could.
No, because what if they did like they did last year and tabled something back to KIP, remember that? And then KIP was supposed to meet, and we never really did, and then we did.
That's what I
and-
said, that's what I want to say.
you want to do it November 2nd then?
County board's on the
In
22nd.
case they do
The
that?
county board is on the 24th
We should do it earlier.
of October.
That's the budget.
No.
It's the,
Oh, November
That's
2nd, in case they do kick something back to us.
yes, we should meet after the county.
Then we're all
Yeah,
set.
can we do November 2nd? Just the first Friday after,
That's fine.
first Friday in November?
7:30
Was that when?
On
Friday?
what
on a
day?
Friday.
7:30 in the
Do we
morning.
meet on the
November
first
2nd.
Friday in the month always?
7:30 in the morning.
Not
7:30?
I was waiting for
Someone to say something, yeah.
What the hell? 8:30. My horses don't get up at 7:30 for God's sakes.
I just wanted to see if you were.
Take them to the horse park.
We meet Thursday, no?
8:30.
8:30.
Meet on Friday, no?
November
8:30,
2nd.
We'll have to change that.
November 2nd.
8:30.
See, I don't.
That's
think
just
it's
tentative.
late yet.
That's
We'll have to be
tentative,
between
but
now and
change.
then.
Right now.
It's not late yet at 8:30, but anyway.
There are no letters or communications.
Okay.
Have a good holiday weekend.
It'd be in order to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposing. We stand adjourned.